Aloha and welcome to Story Time with me, Marcus! The backstory to this story came from me thinking about another way of how I wanted to go out. So those who have been following my stories, yay, thanks, you're all awesome! And have watched the other video where I did the story about me, one way of me dying. If you haven't seen that, go find that video and watch it. And this is a variation of how I want to go out. And that's how this story is. So I guess I just spoiled the ending. Well, my bad! But I didn't spoil how I go out. So let's keep watching and listening to the story that I'm going to read right now. Opening his eyes, Marcus stretches and yawns. In his mind, he still feels like he's 30, but physically, he's pushing just past 1,000 years of being alive. He lost track of how old he was a few centuries ago. Marcus then climbs out of bed and puts on his captain's uniform for the umpteenth time. Looking at himself in the mirror, Marcus smiles and can't believe he looks as good as he does for his age. Stopping his physical age at 30, he still has his dark blonde curly hair and a nice full beard. Getting lost in the reflection of his emerald green eyes, Marcus remembers what happened to Narcissus when he looked at his reflection in the lake, and with a great struggle, Marcus manages to pull his gaze away. Entering the bridge, Marcus pauses as someone calls out, "Captain on deck." Glancing over all the other officers at their stations, Marcus's gaze lingers upon the beautiful science officer, Lacey, and her long brown hair. She recently got transferred to the spaceship Thunderbolt. Her and Marcus clicked from the beginning and started spending more and more time together. Knowing that he was her superior officer, Marcus is playing with fire as he let emotions grow for someone under his command. But it had been a few centuries since Marcus had found anyone that even remotely piqued his interest. In a worst-case scenario, Marcus could just always have her transferred to another ship, although that was the last thing he wanted to do. Breaking off his gaze from Lacey, Marcus takes his seat in the captain's chair and says, "Aloha, everyone! I hope you're all as excited about this mission as I am, because today we are going on an exploration mission to an unmapped zone!" Not hearing any response from the crew, Marcus continues. "We will start on the edges of known space and slowly work our way forward. It should be relatively boring, but nonetheless, it is vital that this area of space get mapped. Johnson, put in the coordinates I'm about to send you and then punch it. Warp 9! Warp 9? Are we in a rush?" Johnson says. "No, I just don't want to spend any more time on this project than we have to." "Got it. Warp 9, engaging now." The view out of the view screen went from one of pure darkness with little dots of light indicating a star somewhere far away to a complete blur of movement. The spaceship was traveling faster than the speed of light, and therefore light could not reach them. With no light, one would expect complete darkness, but what happens in reality is they go plaid. Each crew member had to close and cover their eyes as they traveled to block out the intense color of the plaid. The nice thing about faster than light travel is, it doesn't take that long to get to places. It was only a few minutes before the ship slowed down and came to a complete stop just outside the closest solar system of the unexplored space. Taking a moment to let their eyes readjust from the plaid back to normal light, the bridge crew looks out upon the space they have come to explore. "Sir," Lacey says, "scanners are picking up some strange readings." "Can you tell me more than that?" Marcus says.
It looks like the scanners are picking up an object, but then it disappears to reappear somewhere else. I don't think the scanners are able to get an accurate picture of what's out there.
Do you think it is of any concern? After looking over the scanner for another moment, Lacey says,
No, I don't think it will be. I'll keep an eye on it and let you know if anything changes.
Thanks, and please do. Okay, Johnson, take us forward at half impulse and let's start mapping. After a few minutes of sitting around as the ship moves forward throughout space mapping it, Lacey says,
Sir, now the scanners are really acting strange. It appears that they are picking up 6 ships, and then sometimes 9 ships, and then no ships. It's as if they are being jammed.
Is it raspberry jam? Marcus says and chuckles to himself.
I don't understand what you mean by that.
Don't worry about it. It was a reference from the movie Spaceballs. Standing up, Marcus walks over and stands behind Lacey. Smelling the sweet scent of the shampoo that she used, Marcus has to remind himself that this is a serious moment. Seeing the scanner acting strange, Marcus says, So, scanners are down, which means our targeting systems are also down. Whoever is doing this has powerful technology. Appearing on the view screen was an unknown alien species. It only showed its head, which was smooth, with no hair, and oval in shape. Its skin was a light brown, and many small horns protruded from the top of its head. It had 2 pitch black eyeballs, and 2 small slits on the front of its face as nostrils. Opening its mouth, it exposes a top and bottom row of sharp teeth. Then it begins to speak. The Universal Translator has a tough time translating the language, but in a rough and guttural tone, the alien says, Newcomer, you are trespassing! This space is claimed by the Talikari, and we do not welcome visitors! Prepare to be destroyed! After the alien finished speaking, the screen went blank, and then suddenly, the ship gets hit by a plasma torpedo. Exploding against the shield, it did no damage to the hull, but it wasn't the only one to explode. A barrage of plasma torpedoes explode against the shield, which begins to weaken it significantly.
Sir, the shield is down to 69%, Lacey announces.
Already? Marcus says. We won't last 5 minutes against their weapons. Johnson, return us back to home. Warp 9. You got it, boss, Johnson says and inputs the coordinates to return back home. As the ship turns and prepares to dash forward, a row of plasma torpedoes shoot out from the alien ships and zoom towards the Thunderbolt. The first few torpedoes manage to damage the shield enough that a torpedo is able to break through right as the shield is blasting off. The torpedo hits the back end of the ship, explodes, and knocks out the external power generator. Sputtering forward, the ship manages to survive the wrath of the rest of the torpedoes, but without power, it isn't going anywhere anytime soon. Reading the damage report, Marcus comes to the only logical conclusion. With no way for them to fight, and no way for them to return home, there might just be a way that Marcus can save his crew. But he only has one shot at it. Abandon ship! Marcus orders. Abandon ship! Without question, most of the bridge crew ran for the escape pods. Johnson pauses at the door, salutes Marcus, and then leaves. All that remained of the bridge were Marcus and Lacey.
Marcus, I know you ordered me to leave, but I can't. I'll stay with you till the end,
Lacey says, walks over to Marcus, and gives him a great big hug. Brushing her beautiful brown hair back, Marcus then slides his hand down behind her neck and, tilting her head up, gives her a kiss. Removing his lips from hers, Marcus smiles and says, I've wanted to do that for a long time. I'll allow you to stay until you launch all of our plasma torpedoes. Then after that, I order you to go. Kissing her again, Marcus then steps over to the navigation console and says, "All right, I'm going to start moving us away in hopes to give the escape pods a better chance of escape." Seeing a few of the escape pods launch out into space, Marcus is relieved to know that the crew is following orders. With return coordinates already input in each escape pod, the passengers just have to sit back and relax while it returns them home safely. Well, as long as they aren't blown up by the enemy, which is what Marcus is most worried about at the moment. Seeing where a torpedo was launched from, Lacey then sends a barrage of torpedoes back in the general area. With the alien ship not expecting any retaliation, it wasn't prepared for the extensive damage the explosions would do. With 3 torpedoes hitting the ship, it rips it to shreds and sends little bits and pieces everywhere. Watching his best friend's ship explode, the alien, in his anger, launches a torpedo at one of the escape pods, and it explodes. Seeing his fears happen, Marcus spots the next most likely target and moves the Thunderbolt in front of it. And in the nick of time, too, because right as the nose of the ship passes in front of the escape pod, a torpedo slams into the ship. Watching the escape pod warp out of there, Marcus lets out a sigh of relief.
"Okay, that's the last of the torpedoes,"
Lacey says. Moving over to her, Marcus looks into her beautiful ocean blue eyes and says, "Then it's time for you to go. Get into one of the escape pods and get out of here. There's just one last thing for me to do." Seeing the determination in his eyes, Lacey knows there is no persuading him otherwise. His fate is set, but hers is not. Wrapping her arms around his broad shoulders, Lacey weeps into his chest and says,
"If only we had more time together."
Letting the tears stream down his cheeks, Marcus says, "If only." Giving her one last kiss, Marcus orders her to leave and sits down in his captain's chair. Recalling all of the amazing and all of the not so amazing missions he had been on, Marcus wouldn't trade it for an entire planet or even a solar system, nor would he change anything about it. His life had been good, and he enjoyed serving with the crew that he had. Now there is one last way for him to help his crew and make sure they aren't followed home. "Computer," Marcus says, "activate Captain's Code Alpha, Bravo, Zulu, Zulu." Pausing before saying the last word, Marcus feels the ship shudder from another explosion against its hull and finishes with, "Zulu." A computerized voice responds with, "Confirmed. Self-destruct sequence set for 90 seconds. It has been a real honor working with you, sir, and may you enjoy whatever comes next." Thinking that the last part was a nice add-on, Marcus watches as the last escape pod jettisons from the ship and begins flying away. Within a few moments, it warped out of there and was on its way home. Knowing that the crew had escaped was all that Marcus needed to know and feel good going down with the ship. But not just that. He also knew that he was taking the whole surrounding area with him. Nothing within 1,000 miles will survive the blast. Once the fusion core explodes, the resulting chain reaction will continue to get bigger and bigger until it at some point begins to fizzle out. But by that time, there will be nothing around to talk about what happened here. Not sure how much time had passed, Marcus feels the ship get rocked from another explosion. Wondering if they will destroy him before the time is up, Marcus decides that's not the last thing he wants to think about. He would much rather think about that beautiful science officer with the long brown hair, with the pretty blue eyes, and such kissable lips. The last thought on Marcus's mind was kissing them again. That's when the fusion reactor exploded! It was a giant and magnificent explosion. In a fraction of a second, it emitted huge quantities of energy that shot outward in all directions. Not expecting, nor able to defend against such an attack, all of the alien ships were instantly vanquished. It will later become known in their myths as the Great Explosion. Sitting in her escape pod, Lacey could still feel the warmth of Marcus's lips against hers. And although she was too far away to see it when the moment came, she knew. With none of the other passengers wanting to talk, Lacey sits silently the rest of her journey on home. The end. Thank you for joining me with this story. I love you all, and make sure to hit that like and subscribe button, and I will see you in the next one. Aloha and goodbye.